What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about Polestar. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what just came out from the company itself and what that means for shareholders. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Polestar on Friday went down 5.17%, settling roughly around 60 cents, 64 cents the high, but very low volume. So 1.9 million shares being traded. Of that 1.9, most of which were linked to either shorts or algorithmic trading, because on the secondary market, there was no transactions. So big money wasn't really doing all that much. And even as far as the dark pool, there was no transactions. So at the end of the day, institutions just don't really care about Polestar. And as I've kind of complained about in the past couple of videos, can you blame them? You can't really blame institutions for not investing at all, because even on social media, Polestar hasn't posted anything since April the 30th. So from a marketing standpoint, they don't care. And in all honesty, I don't think that management overall cares about even shareholders, because technically they became deficient with the $1 bid price rule with the NASDAQ and instantly jumped to the conclusion that they are going to be doing a reverse stock split. That was it. And I think there was still some hope from investors that they weren't going to actually commit to do a reverse stock split, and that they were just going to do it just in case. Well, it turns out they did actually announce the date of it. So on December the 4th, they announced that they are going to be doing a 1-for-30 reverse stock split, and it will take effect December the 9th, so next week. So in general, management was 100% fully committed on just doing this. So if you read between the lines, from now for the next 180 days, management doesn't really see any upside, because that was kind of the grace period that the NASDAQ gave Polestar. They gave them 180 days to rectify this deficiency. Management didn't even care to attempt that 180 days. They just went to do a reverse stock split. So what does this mean for Polestar investors, you might be asking? Very good question. So for instance, if you have 100 shares, or it doesn't really matter how many shares you have, take that divided by 30. That's going to be your new share count. Your average, you have to take your current average times by 30, and that's going to be your new average. So in theory, your book is going to stay the exact same. So your dollar value, in theory. So that doesn't really change. It's just a lot of the key metrics. And they do have to stay over $1 for 10 consecutive days at the very least to get the rubber stamp from the NASDAQ. So in my opinion, they will definitely do that. So if it somehow stays roughly around that 60-cent mark, then you can anticipate the stock price to be roughly around $18, right? So 60 cents times by 30, and yeah, there you have it. When it comes down to post reverse stock split, this is where a lot of influencers like to spin the narrative and say, hey, you know what? We actually might see a short squeeze post reverse stock split, and that shorts have to cover. That's something that retail and a lot of YouTubers love to say, and in reality they don't. The only ones that have to return prior to a reverse stock split is if there is naked shorting, and that is very difficult to catch, to prove, because even the SEC has a difficult time with that. So if for whatever reason Polestar does have naked shorting occurring with it, then they do have to return. But given that there's about 77 million shares on loan, 39 million is being shorted, I don't see there being any kind of reason why there would be any naked shorts. Even on Friday, shorts did return about 145,000 shares, works out to be 10.19% of the free float. So overall being shorted on a side note. So that's what we're going into this upcoming week with. If, for instance, Polestar does announce a big merger or some big announcement, you might see shorts return because of that, because of a catalyst, but not because of a reverse stock split. So this is going to be unpopular opinion, because people don't want to hear that, right? I'm not here to pump you up, and I'm not here to bring you down. I list the facts. You can never come back to me and be like, hey, you didn't tell me about this. Whereas a lot of influencers, like I said, they can say whatever the hell that they want with seemingly no repercussions. DTC sitting at 7.9 days, so that does signal that shorts are a little bit overextended, but still unless a catalyst comes out. Don't anticipate anything like crazy. When it comes down to price action, this is again what a lot of people are wondering, what is going to happen. And one stock that actually conveniently did also a 1-for-30 reverse stock split is Lucid. And in their case, it kind of caught a lot of investors off guard, no different than Polestar. But what happened with Lucid is theirs took effect on the September the 2nd. And so starting September the 3rd, it instantly went down 5%. And in theory, reverse stock split does not change anything operationally. It's just changing key metrics to adjust the share price, and that is it. So in theory, it shouldn't cause the stock price to go down, but sentiment, it does change that component. So people just lose trust in the stock if they do a reverse stock split. And I think given Polestar, even doing a reverse stock split, like management still won't really care. So I think management does need to, there has to be a bigger issue dealt with sooner rather than later. But in Lucid's case, first day they went down 5%, then it was flat, down another 5%, down 2%, 3%, and so forth. So it is fair to assume that Polestar will have the same type of price action, and that it will most likely go down probably around 15 to 20%, on which that should be the bottom, and then it'll probably stabilize and might move higher from there. So realistically, you can kind of anticipate it to hit maybe around $14. Again, that's factoring in if it stays roughly around 60 cents. So again, there's a lot of different factors that could happen, but anticipate another 20% pullback. So I think that also might have a lot of institutions and retail holding off from buying prior to the reverse stock split. So you might see a lot more volatility leading into the reverse stock split, but that's some things just to kind of keep in mind. Aside from that, if you have any options, so that's going to be another hot topic that people potentially might care about. And honestly, I don't even understand why market makers have allowed Polestar to do options. I get it that they meet the criteria based on the number of shares that they have for outstanding, but even on Friday, there was 4,300 in calls, 1,800 in puts. That is dismal, extremely dismal. In theory, post reverse stock split, technically Polestar would still qualify for new chains, but if market makers don't see it advantageous, they're not going to launch them. And based on this volume, it is fair to assume that there won't be really any options. Normally, if there is, it'll take about 1 or 2 business days for that to actually take hold. So given the fact that they're doing a reverse stock split on the Tuesday, maybe on December the 11th or possibly the 12th, if market makers do decide to launch new chains, that is when they will be kind of fully in force. So yeah, for those of you that maybe want to benefit from a 20% push lower, you can always buy some puts. Again, do your own due diligence, research options, and all that fun stuff. But as far as that, I don't think that there will be new chains, but I could be wrong. Aside from that, if you're wanting to day trade, swing trade with it at right now at 60 cents, it is trading between this pivot and this S1. So 50 cents is going to be a strong support, and then 63 cents is going to be the next strong target / resistance. For those of you that have tuned into a lot of my Polestar videos, you'd know that when it was at like 90 something cents, I mentioned it was going to bounce off of 50 cents and then kind of push higher. At that stage, I didn't know the reverse stock split was going to, and wasn't announced yet at that stage, but it did bounce off of that 50-cent mark. This is why I love to just look at the data. Don't get so influenced by sentiment and get emotional with any stock. If you look at the data, it tells you exactly where it will be going. So in general, this is why I kind of called that 50 cents. And so pop over to my Patreon on a side note if you're looking for some more solid on-point predictions such as that. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Actually just launched a $15 tier as well, so $15 a month. So you can get in. You will never be increased whatsoever. So definitely pop over there and check that out. Some massive bangers. Even I'll go over one in a second, but On Polestar's case, on the actual chart, it is starting to build up a little bit of momentum, but that's largely piggybacking off of just the macro conditions, because most of Polestar's volume comes from either shorts or algorithmic trading, and so algorithmic trading is really pushing Polestar higher. So it is, again, building up some good momentum, but still nothing of substance. And once the reverse stock split does take hold, anticipate a little bit of a push lower. So not necessarily the best type of scenario. So let me know your thoughts on Polestar. Are you buying more? Do you truly believe a reverse stock split is going to prompt a squeeze? And if so, why? I'm kind of curious based on that. And like I said, pop over to my Patreon. There was one that I just put out there, and this stock has went on for a massive run. So when this one was at $14, signaled this as a buy, and it closed on Friday at $18.67. So many other bangers such as that, so definitely worthwhile to kind of pop over there and check that out. But with all that said, appreciate all of you watching.